Om Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaram Loka Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Bṛhadāraṇyam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavadvyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtage Namaha. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Since it is the Bṛhadāraṇyaka Upaniṣad belonging to the Shukla Yajurveda, we will also be chanting the Shukla Yajurveda mantra. You can chant with me. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. This doesn't mean that the class is over. So in fact it is yet to begin. Okay. This is a very long section, as you can see from the reading, it's got a lot of pages. And to do this sentence by sentence, I think would be a very wonderful activity, but it will take probably 30 days rather than 6 hours. So some other time. It's a wonderful thing to do line by line. Very important section in this Upanishad. And even though there are other Upanishads that obviously deal with the subject matter of this Upanishad, which is the light of ātman, that self which one is craving to understand, yearning to discover as the truth of oneself, as that which is oneself, as limitless as Bhagavan. So that self is pictured here in the form of light. So this is an important theme, not only in other Upanishads, but even among, religious and spiritual traditions that have nothing to do with the Upanishad. So light is always there, as in this little light of mine. What am I going to do with it? I'm going to let it shine. So, what Vedanta has the person who composed this song studied? Hardly any Vedanta, probably none. But still there is this feeling that there is something else other than that which is visible, and that which one is can be best described as light. Okay? So this Upanishad takes this Upanishad does a PhD thesis on light. In the first portion of this, this particular chapter we are studying is chapter 4. Are we studying all of chapter 4? No. We are studying chapter 4, subsection 3, mantras 1 through 23, probably. Okay? So, I will not be studying this in detail, but just to tell you what we are going to cover. This is what we are going to cover. So 4, 3, 1 to 23 mantras. So 4 is the chapter, 3 is the subsection, and then And the subsection has again 37 mantras or something, but we are only going to study like in the early 20s we are going to stop. Okay? So you can imagine from this itself, how big the Upanishad is. More about this very, very shortly. But first I was going to make a comparison that all Upanishads and all, and not just Upanishads, but all, messages of spiritual traditions, talk about light, the self as something which is very bright and light. Even God is described as light, Ishvara is light, and Jiva is light. Jiva means this sad individual full of peeves is also light. Light that is hiding under a bushel. That's all it is. So light nonetheless. Like even the, to give an Upanishad example, like the, what is that called? Embers. The embers covered with ashes. The ashes is, all these inhibiting factors that come in the way of seeing this light. So while all other Upanishads and spiritual traditions touch upon this metaphorically, this Upanishad, does a beautiful PhD thesis in, about the nature of this quote-unquote Jyoti. And of course, this Jyotis, this light, is what? Equated to Brahman, the cause of the universe, Ishvara. So it's an Ishvaric light, nay, it is light in the form of Ishvara. So that is the conclusion at the end of this PhD thesis. And the PhD thesis, this treatise, is very commendable because each chapter breaks it down further and further, so that at the end of reading this, studying this thesis, there is no doubt, one is quote unquote enlightened about the nature of this light. There is no doubt left. Because the examples strike home, and the examples that are given are also given in a very unique dialogic way, in terms of two sages, a king and a sage, talking to one another. And the king and the sage talking to one another, it is in the form of a dialogue. And then so there is no doubt left about what this light is. So it's going to talk about, this light that powers the body, the mind, the senses, all of one's activities in the world. And if there is no activity, it lightens that up too. Hello, you have become a couch potato. It lightens that there is no activity here. Get up, move around. Sitting is the new smoking. This is what they say. Yeah, you have to, you have to keep moving around. That's why we are having breaks. And, and you keep jumping around, moving around, If you sit for 5 minutes, you have to run around in place for 10 minutes. This is the latest, what's the thing. So that's why, there is a break in between. So that's why it's not given in the form of a marathon. So this is one of the first topics that we are going to deal with. And then the second topic that, is predominant in this section that we are going to be studying in detail has to do with, what is that called? The self, I. What happens to this I that is endowed, of course, with a body, an embodied I, and which has a body. And then how do you know you have a body? Because you have a mind that tells you have a body, correct? So a mind that observes this and is that you can see, you have sense organs, you have a body, so you have not just the body, you have the body, mind, sense complex, which is a complex issue. So you have the body, mind, sense complex, and this body, this self, that is the indweller, as it were, that which obtains as though in this body, mind, sense complex, described and, where we have come to the conclusion as the light of, the light of all lights. And then this self, what is its function and what is its form when this body, mind, sense complex is going about its day doing various activities. Various activities also includes inactivity. And when is the body, mind, sense complex inactive?
Sleep.
Yeah, unless it's happening right now, you should be able to give the answer. In sleep, there is no activity, correct? So then the question is, this is a connection from the previous, section, that what happens to this light, when there is no activity, Just before you sleep, what do? You switch off the light, right? So does this jyotiṣāñjyotiḥ, the light of all lights, also there is a button and it gets switched off, a button in the heart or in the head, it doesn't matter wherever you live, so upstairs or downstairs, doesn't matter, switch it off, just like you switch off the bedroom light or the table, bedside light before going to bed. Here also, before going to sleep, does the Jyotir-Brāhmaṇa, this Brahman, which is the light of life, does that also automatically switch off? Because why waste electricity, correct? Yeah. Why waste electricity and coal and all these things? And so, does it also get switched off? No. That is the answer. Why? Because when you wake up, what do you say?
I have slept.
Not just I have slept so well, I didn't know anything. What happened, I didn't know anything at all. And so, that means what? The light is on, not off, okay? Yeah. And despite that light being on, you get very restful sleep. Even though they say make the room dark and, then only you will get sleep here. Contrary to this, understanding, you get sleep. Even though the light is on, no problem. Nobody is home. Yeah. Light is at home, but light is on, correct? And then we have another kind of an interesting state. This is what is called the sleep state, right? And again we go back to the light. Even though the other Upanishad discuss the sleep state, they don't quite do it in the same way. This is why this Upanishad is very, very, very special. So now what happens? Now we have, the light is there, correct? It is there or not there? It is there. Where? In the state of sleep. Then, it's not that you go from sleep to waking. There is also one more state. What is that? Then the question is, what happens to the light in the dream? Does it get covered with colored paper, and it's like a soft light that projects, or it becomes a disco light, maybe you're dancing in the dream and it becomes a disco light, what does it do? Well, the light doesn't change. The unchanging light is there, but then the unchanging light, turns into a spotlight. This is almost reminiscent of the what? Panchadashi. Which chapter? Any chapter, doesn't matter. Yeah. Here it's a free for all because most of the chapters, chapter 8 discusses this, chapter 10, chapter 8, and with special reference to chapter 8 and 10. Chapter 8 and 10, chapter 8 starts with a very interesting metaphor. And in fact, it talks, not to be outdone by this Upanishad, it talks about two lights. Even one light to master, it takes a lifetime. And then here, what are these two lights that we are talking about in the Panchadashi? Chapter 8, Panchadashi chapter 8 talks about first a wall. You're staring at the wall. See, even in ancient times, this was a kind of a mental health practice that was engaged by the people, routinely. That's how one finds oneself staring at a wall. Then what happens? Over that, you find a disk of light. Maybe a child is playing with a toy, and a toy in the form of a orb, a little, even a steel plate, correct? So there is the window there, the wall here, you are, you need some time out. So instead of looking out the window, you are looking at the wall. But the light is coming from the window. This is what is called the general light, right? The general light, of which we have a PhD thesis here. This special general light is bathing the wall with light. That's why the wall comes to light. The wall is visible to you. And then what? Then a child behind you is, your child or grandchild or a neighbor's child is playing with a steel plate. That's all is needed. And then a round steel plate, and then what happens? You see a, orb. You see an orb of light, as the child is moving the plate up and down, you see it go back and forth, ricocheting everywhere, and then, then you are following it with your eyes, So now that particular light is what, so there is a general light because of which the wall shines and because of which the plate also shines. So the plate light is not outside of this general light, correct? But the plate does interesting things, And so here, this is akin to what is called the waking state, because the plate moves up and down, That is the jiva jumping up and down when they don't get their way. The plate is moving up and down. The individual who is frustrated, okay, which is 23 out of 24 hours. And then, then what happens? Then the light slowly goes like this, like that, very nicely, like an arc. And this is the jiva, slowly going from one activity to another. And then the light, in that light there are some interesting things happening. The plate is moved this way, that way. Suddenly the light becomes a crescent and then it becomes full again. And this can be, this can be compared to the dream state where the light takes on a particular, what is that? A particular rendition without being affected. It's not that there are two lights, there is only one light. So the fact that there are two lights itself is not only an optical illusion in terms of an example, but it is also a delusion in terms of, the self-knowledge. That there are two sources that are powering this body-mind-sense complex. This is the problem. This is what causes separation. This is what causes anxiety. That's why it is called separation anxiety. So the second portion of this is what happens to this light. How does the light behave? And this, and what happens to this person, because the person is non-separate from this light, and not the person who is the body-mind-sense complex, but the person who is the indweller of the body-mind-sense complex is equated to this light. So when you say what happens to this light, you are actually asking the question, what happens to this person? What happens to this person in the dream, in the deep sleep? That comprises the second portion of what we are going to be studying. This is what the breakdown is like. Okay, so this is it's always nice to kind of deal with the general themes, so then we can go back and see where we are, and then and then follow along. And some of this we will be we at least we'll begin by reading a little bit, but then I don't know how much we'll read, because there will not be much time for whatever. But at least, since I see that everybody has a handout, I'm encouraged to at least go through a few portions, at least point them out so that you can highlight them and then go back afterwards and study them in detail, or at least they will form the basis for future references or even if you don't go and study them in detail, the next time you actually read those sentences, hopefully all that we have studied here in this retreat will come back. Will come back to you, and then it will help to, it will help to recall what all has been there, and that's wonderful. And the one more thing I will mention about this Upanishad is that it has numerous very winning quotations that are quoted in other Upanishads, and that for which, without which the Vedanta teachers would have a very bleak life if these quotations were not there. Yeah, because the Vedanta teachers rely on these quotations. And you would have heard me quote this Upanishad, even though we have not studied this portion. You would have heard me quote it in other, in other contexts, because it has some very, very beautiful quotations, And, we'll be looking at some of those important quotations, because that's what makes this Upanishad, this portion of the Upanishad unique. Okay? So now, what is an Upanishad? We have to do this because, we have been talking so much about Upanishad. We have to just make sure everybody is on the same page. So what is an Upanishad? Why? I have to answer all the questions. What is an Upanishad? Remover of ignorance. Yeah. Let us go through this thing. The root verb. The root verb is what? Shadl. Yeah. By the time you say it, you need a present. Yeah. So Panini made it easier and said, just say shad. Okay? Shad is the root verb. Shad plus upa plus ni. Upa plus ni plus shad. This is how the word is made. So this shad is actually, what does it mean? It has, see, this is how Sanskrit works. Sanskrit has certain root verbs over which some kind of operations need to take place. That same root verb with a prefix and a suffix is called noun. The same root verb with another suffix is called verb. Another suffix is called adverb, like this, or adjective. So it's just the same, 2200 root verbs. If you know these 2200 root verbs, you know the whole language. Yeah. And you know the whole entire language. It's so easy. Yeah. So, yeah, next starting middle of next January, I'll be teaching Sanskrit, so you can take that if you want. So then we will be, here looking at this word shad, which is a root verb. And there are three meanings assigned to some root verbs. Some root verbs have only one meaning or two. Some root verbs have 4 or 5 meanings. And these meanings are arbitrarily assigned by the sages who, formulated the language. So, shad means what? What is the meaning of shad?
To shed.
Yes, very good. To shed. Yeah, like the leaves in the autumnal leaves, shed. And what do they shed? The trees, what do they shed? The trees shed the leaves, and the Upanishad helps to shed your ignorance. This is what the whole thing is. So, shad means to avasadayati, destroys. Okay, destroys what? Anything that comes in the way of this understanding that I'm not a sad, wanting person, and I'm not attacked by anything or anyone, and I'm not under threat, and I'm not under duress. This is what it is. Sad or shad means destroys. Avasadayati. Destroys sorrow. Destroys ignorance, which is the cause of sorrow. We'll be seeing all this. And destroys all the effects of this ignorance, because the ignorance as such doesn't cause problems. This we have to remember. What's wrong with ignorance? Nothing. That's why somebody said ignorance is bliss. Better you don't know, because if you know, there are problems. So ignorance is bliss? Question mark? No. Ignorance of ignorance is bliss. Then you are happy. That is the clincher. Because if you know you don't know, you cannot stand yourself. You cannot stand yourself knowing that you don't know. Therefore, you should not know that you don't know. Then you are happy. And what is this ignorance of? Myself as Ishvara. That's the ignorance. I don't think that I have anything to do with this concept called God. For us, it's not a matter of belief. It's to be understood as the truth of oneself. But a person thinks I have nothing to do with this concept called God. At the most, I can say I feel odd. Yeah. You remove the G. Yeah, that is me. Yeah. Not God, odd. Yeah. But you see, this is a very special feeling only the human being has. The dog is oblivious to this complex. I'm not famous enough, Forget pedigree, I don't even have a degree, and I don't have this, I don't have that. Look at that other dog. It won a prize in the Westminster Dog Show. It just strutted around and it got a prize. Even I can strut around, but I don't have the credentials. I'm a mongrel. Yes. Mongrel means just a mix-up. It doesn't have that. And that's why, for such dogs, there is an ugly dog competition. This Westminster Dog Show and all, this is for top dog, yes. But what about the poor bottom dogs, These are not alpha dogs, these are not, they don't have all their fur pruned and, splits with all some kind of, antioxidants and everything and brushed down till the coat gleams as a self-lit source of light. And, and then this dog is being strutted around in circles and, dog is like this and the owner is also like this because the owner is going to get the certificate. Dog doesn't get the certificate. If you give the dog the ribbon, it will play with it. If you give the dog the certificate, it will eat it. Well assimilated certificate. So then what? So owner gets the certificate. But let's say this mongrel watching this from afar had a human mind. And in the presence of the human mind, the mongrel, feels very bad about itself. Look at that. And then what? Or the one who is watching TV is the owner of an ugly dog or an owner of this mongrel. Oh, look at those people. They get to take their dogs and then, show them off and then say, sit and stand and roll over and play and run and walk and stay and shake a paw. All these things, they get to do that. But you are no less special. The owner is feeling sad. The dog is happily wagging its tail and sitting next to the owner and watching the TV. It has no problems. Owner is ignorant? Yes or no? Yes. Okay, because we are not talking of a Vedantin owner here. Okay? And is the dog ignorant? Yes or no? Yes. Who is having the problem? Owner is having the problem. The dog is blissfully happy. It doesn't know what it doesn't know. It's happy. And the owner pets the dog. We have to do something about it. I need to collect some signatures. Let us, from next year, have an ugly dog show. There is such a thing. Yeah. Let us have a, alternative Westminster show for all the sad little ugly dogs, who are not having pedigrees, who just are such a sad, mismatch of everything. One eye is coming out, the other eye is, insect not coming out, and the tongue is hanging on one side, and one side the teeth are like this, the other side there are no teeth, to begin with. And so, but somebody loves this dog, correct? And then they have started now, I don't know for how many years, but along with this is Westminster is for the top dog, and for all the underdogs there is this competition, ugly dog contest, where the ugliest one reigns. And I don't know about this year, but last year's winner I saw, and they had chosen well. That's all I can say. So, did anybody see the last year winners of the ugly dog competition? Yeah, you can Google it, not now. Okay, don't Google it now. Yeah, so you can Google it in the break and look at that. So, so now then you can be happy and have more Shraddha that I'm not sitting here making things up, which I also do sometimes. But this is not one of those times. Okay? Yeah. So now why am I going into this story of the ugly dog competition? Because the ugly dog competition is not for the dog at all. Just like the beautiful dog competition is not for the beautiful dog. Who is it for? The owner. So therefore, the ugly dog competition is also for who? The owner. Why? Because the owner has a complex centered not only on himself or herself, but also centered on the dog. Why my dog is left out? First, why am I being left out? And then, why is my dog being left out? Just because it is 2 pounds overweight. Why is it left out? And I'm going to have a different competition so that, my dog doesn't feel left out. Who is really left out? The owner, who has taken on the persona of the dog here. The dog is fine. And the very interesting thing to note here, dog ignorant of the Atma, the Atman as Brahma, Jagat Karanam Brahma. The dog doesn't know I am Ishvara. The dog doesn't know there is a spelling mistake in my name. It should be G-O-D, not D-O-G. No. The owner also doesn't know. Tattvamasi, I am the whole. The owner also doesn't know. Then, but the dog is happy, at least looks to be happy. Unless it's abused or beaten up, it seems to be fine. But can you say the same about the owner? No. So therefore, ignorance doesn't cause problems. So, but then why remove the ignorance? Through the first meaning of the word avasadayati, which is the meaning of the root verb sad, shad. Why remove this ignorance? Because in the human being, the ignorance takes on, It's like, the ignorance left to its own devices starts to grow. Like old food in the refrigerator. Yeah. After a week, you look at it, you forget all about it, it's in the back of the fridge, and then wonderful colors, it's a science project. It's like nothing that you put in the fridge, correct? So ignorance is the capital because of which birth takes place. All are born in ignorance. The dog and the not dog, the owner, both are born in ignorance. The dog continues to be ignorant. The owner cannot stand his or her ignorance. This is what the whole thing is. So the ignorance grows. Ignorance morphs into I cannot stand myself. I hate myself. Self-loath, self-judgment, fears, tears are all this morphing, spin-off, spin-off of this ignorance. Sometimes they do this to the some kind of television shows. You have a show, it's very popular, and then you have a few characters and it is called spin-off, like a continuation. Spin-off. So here the ignorance morphs into, what is that? Wrong knowledge. Wrong knowledge of the I is equal to this, jiva. So the ignorant I, in case of the human being, is equal to what? The one that is full of mistaken assumptions, wrong knowledge, wrong conclusions, delusions and confusions about the state of the I, about the nature of this I. And this wrong knowledge, this wrong conclusion, this wrong confusion is what is dismantled by the Upanishad. That is why the first meaning of the word is destroy, avasadayati. And then, many things are destroyed, correct? And what happens to all the things that are destroyed? Tada, they come back. They are back. So maybe this ignorance is like this because this human being, is a skeptical fellow. Extremely ordinary and skeptical. Why should I study something? It removes the ignorance, all right. But then after a while what happens? It comes back. Why should I study? Why should I bother to study something that is not, permanent? And so therefore, the next meaning is unmulayati, visharati. Visharati, unmulayati. So it destroys, all right, but it destroys without a trace. Like even the fog, in the light of the sun. The fog is destroyed without a trace. Okay, now it is worth studying, looks like. It is worth studying, perhaps. But then there is a slight problem. Why? Because, I, as a human being, am a shaker, mover, doer. And then what? Doer, karta. After karta, what happens? Quick. Bhokta. Yeah. Karta, the doer, then becomes what? The experiencer of what one has done, what one is doing. The doer becomes experiencer because in fact, you do only in order to experience. Nobody cooks just for the sake of cooking. Yeah. What are you doing? Cooking an elaborate meal. Oh, you're having people over for Thanksgiving? No. Why should I cook for them? Let them cook. Yeah. Then what are you doing? I just want to take some photos of the meal. Why? Are you going to publish it? No, nothing. Are you going to write a blog? No. Are you testing out recipes? No. What are you doing? Cooking lunch. After that, what will you do? Oh, I better start cooking dinner. Nobody does this. Bhogaya karma. It's only for the sake of enjoying the fruits of action does even one act. In fact, if there is no reward, there will be no action. The reward has to be up, front and center, and including the rewards of studying the Upanishad. That's why we are going in detail about this. So the reward has to be right there, It has to be right up front. I should know why I am getting into this, otherwise I am not a fool. Why will I do something without knowing what am I going to get? So first I become a doer, and then what? My actions do me in. I am done in by my actions because nothing goes right most of the time, okay? So first doer, then done in, then doer, then done in, then doer. Aha, at least I got what I wanted. Oh no, somebody took it away. Okay, again, keep doing in order to become an experiencer of the results of action. Karta, bhokta, karta, bhokta, karta, bhokta. In between pramata, yes, I know I have to do this. And then I do this. And then what? Oh no, I have to do this. I have to redo this. That's why in the computer world, there are many iterations of the same thing. You take some simple thing as this, what is that called? USB, which is a great invention. You can exchange devices across the board, across all platforms, along with a few viruses. You can, viruses are free. Okay, yeah, you can exchange certain devices. I plug it into my computer, download a file for you, give you that. Even now we have started to give out our talks in the form of little USB drives. Yeah. Modern Vedanta, that is what we do. And so then, we have all these things, and then you can plug it into any computer and download that file, how it was uploaded, exactly intact, you can download it. Correct? So then they came with a first, iteration, USB, then 2.0, 3.0, like this. It keeps undergoing new iterations. Why? Because every doing, leaves room for improvement. That's why the doing is never ending. The doing is, one is tethered to the doing, as it were. And one is tethered not only to the actions, but to the result of actions. And this kind of an invisible but pervasive cycle of action, result of action, my being as though bound to action and result of action, that is what is cut. Avasadayati. This connection that I am the doer and I am the recipient of action is corrected by destroying this notion that I am the doer. That notion is destroyed because it is corrected. I am not the doer, and if I am not the doer, this is good news. Why? Because somebody else can take the blame. Who did this? Not me. I am Brahman. I am Atma, which is Brahman. In fact, they knew this. They knew in English we will have to say, I am Atma, which is Brahman. And so we have a Mahavakya in the Mandukya Upanishad, I am Atma Brahma. Yeah. Lot of similarities with English. Rope and aropa, like that, So, this is, this is where the crux of the wrongness in the, assimilation of the I, lies. And the I as the doer is thoroughly questioned, shaken up by the collar, and divested from the I, shooed away. Shooed away, like sometimes what happens, the, what is they called? Thieves, Let's say 2 thugs fall upon this person, an innocent wayfarer in the forest. Let's take it to the ancient example. So 2 thugs fall upon this person. And then, a sage is there. What can the sage do? The sage has nothing. But the sage has a walking stick. And the sage throws the walking stick. Correct? And takes care of these 2 thugs who run away. That is like the sage here is the Upanishad, the walking stick is the teaching, and then the 2 thugs are what? Kartritvam and Bhoktritvam, doership and experiencership, that have fallen upon this innocent wayfarer, the jiva, and are bothering him. And then the sage throws the stick, which is the live teaching of the Shruti, along with the teacher, is thrown at these thugs. And these thugs, disappear. Will they come back? No. But why will they not come back? Because they are really not there to begin with. That is why they will not come back. It's like when you put your child to bed. The child will say, you have to make sure that the monster under the bed is gone. And the mother says, I promise you, I will make it go away. So she goes under the bed and she makes the monster go away. Will it come back? And the mother says, absolutely not. Similarly, how can the mother or the father say with so much certainty that the monster will not come back? What if it came back? How can they say? Because it was never there to begin with. It was there in the eyes of a frightened child. And so too, the fact that, I am bound to being a doer and being done in by my doings is the conclusions of a frightened inner child, not the adult. The frightened inner child thinks, I am being set upon by these two fellows who are bothering me. Thug number 1 says, I came here first, I want the wallet. The thug number 2 says, no, but I saw him first, I want this one. And so both of them are, kartritvam, karta, no, bhokta, karta, bhokta, help. And so the stick is thrown, not on the thugs, on the head of this fellow. And the thugs disappear because the thugs were never there. The thugs were a projection of a mind that was sick. Yeah, that's all it is. Why was the mind sick? Because it took itself to be what it is not. Sad, sick mind. It took itself to be what it is not. And so therefore, the thugs, it took itself to be a karta, thug number 1. It took itself to be a bhokta, an experiencer of its doings, thug number 2. And both the thugs, are gone. Because they were never there. It was a wrong association, a wrong understanding. And then that leaves us. Where does it leave us? It leaves us in a good place. I can finally inhale, exhale freely. Why? Because now I know there are no thugs. I'm neither a doer nor the done in I am by my own doings. This is good, great news, fantastic news. I'm so happy. And then what? Are you really happy? Well, but then what am I? If I'm not the karta, if I'm not the bhokta, I don't want to be karta bhokta. Okay, fine. I got the fact that I'm not the karta bhokta. Then where am I going? Who am I? And that is revealed by the third meaning of the word shadl or sad or shad, which is gamayati. Gamayati means leads. It knocks off the kartritvam, bhoktritvam. It knocks off all notions. I am fat, I am thin, I need to lose weight. One person thinks. I need to put on weight. Another person thinks. And the third one is in denial. What weight? And the fourth one says, I need to eat. Why wait? And so like this, all kinds of people are there. And I'm not the doer, I'm not the done in, I'm not fat, I'm neither fat nor thin because I'm not the body, I'm not the mind, I'm not the senses. All these notions are there. Just like I'm not the karta, bhokta. These are two, the two main thugs, and the smaller thugs are also there. I'm the body, I'm the mind, etc. All of them are dismissed. Wonderful. But then who am I? If I'm none of these, then who am I? So then the stick of the sage hits the head and the person sees some cheap birdies going in a circle and then falls to the ground. The thugs run away because they are not there. They are a projection of this person's, powerful and wrong projection, imagination. Thugs go away, and by the time the sage comes to retrieve the stick, correct? Approaches the fellow, puts some cold water, wakes this fellow up and says, okay, I feel better. My dear sir, who are you? Who am I? Okay, you're asking the right questions. Let me, walk along with you to the culmination of this teaching, because this newly divested jiva, divested from all its notion, is to be repatriated, taken back to its source. The source has to be, as it was just pointed out, indicated through lakshana vakyas, through indicatory, words. You are all knowledge, you are that consciousness, you are awareness, and you are that which is non-separate from the cause of the universe. If there is a cause of the universe called God, Ishvara, Bhagavan, whatever it is, it cannot be outside of you. This is the full road, this is the full length of the teaching. So it is a two-part operation. First, you imagine this, whatever, you have this, thing in the mind, the head is hit with a stick or a stone, and then what? The thugs are gone, the thugs of wrong notions which are catching on, falling upon this fellow and troubling him, harassing him, her, are gone. And then once the thugs are taken out of the picture, then the person is taken to Brahman, so to speak. This is all in heavy quotes because the person is Brahman. There is no taker, there is no taken, there is no taking, but this is all proverbial, as though repatriated. So this is operation 2, correct? Operation 1, remove the thugs, wrong notions. Operation 2, repatriate it with the right notion. So in the same, vein, the Upanishad has two kinds of important statements. The first one is what is called neti neti neti. Neti means what?
Not this.
Yeah, what is the this?
Anything else.
Any thug. Yeah, any thug that has fallen, you are not this. Oh, but I feel cold. But you're not the body. Well, I feel restless. You're not the mind. I feel hungry. You're not the prana. I feel angry. You're not the mind. Again, you're not the chittam. What is the chittam? Emotions. You're not the emotions. I feel like doing something. You're not the karta. Well, it's all because of what I did. This is my karma. I have to sit and do this. You're not the bhokta. This is all neti 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 is throwing the stick and removing all the thugs that have attached, so to speak. And then the other part of the operation is to indicate what the self is. You don't have to teach this because the self is already that. And the self is the light, remember, that light which never shuts off even during sleep, which never goes off. And that light is what? All awareness. And so this awareness is already all knowledge, as we shall see, and it's already aware, so it doesn't have to be made aware of anything. But therefore, Brahma Gamayati, the third meaning of the word Upanishad, is a metaphorical Gamayati, is led to seeing that one is, what one is. So those are just indicatory words that indirectly are, one is, is shown where to go. Ramana Maharshi said, Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi once said that the words, the Mahavakya, the words in the Veda, in Vedanta, that talks about the union of Jiva with Bhagavan, Ishvara, or what, are just like a signpost. Sometimes you have signposts, like you go to a park or you go to a rest stop. I have seen sometimes there is just a hand like this pointing. And then above they will be said, walking area for the pets, pet exercise area, restroom, whatever is written, shops, restaurants, whatever is there is written. And then just the hand, like this is pointing. And you don't need anything more. You just need to be pointed and then you know where to go. Similarly here, the self being Brahman just needs an indication, because that Brahman, which the self is, cannot be verbalized, vocalized, inferred, or known as an object, because it is the nature of the subject. And since the subject happens to be self-aware, all it needs is a little, push. Look here, look into this in this way. And the rest of the Upanishad are words that talk about this. Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma Nityam Sarvagatasthānuhu Sanatanaha, Bhagavad Gita. First in the Bhagavad Gita you see these two-part operation happening simultaneously. The first line is dismissing what the self is not, and the second line is affirming or indicating what the self is. In the second chapter, many verses are there. Akledyoyam. This cannot be, the self is not subject to operation by water, is not subject to water damage or anything. It cannot be destroyed by water. Adahyoyam. This self, this Atma cannot be destroyed by fire. Negative statement, negation, And then what? And then akledyoyam, adahyoyam, achedya. You cannot, cut it up with scissors or poke holes in it with a knife. Ashosyoyam. Ashosya means it cannot be dried out by air. Dehydrated. The self is not subject to dehydration. Your body is, but not the self. And then what? The very next line. Nityaha. It is always unchanging in the same form. Sarvagataha. So it's not stationary. It is in everything. It's manifest as everything. Sthanuhu. Sthanuhu means what? It is, it is in one place, yet it is everywhere. Unchanging in one place. Sanatanaha. Again a positive statement. Sanatanaha means it was, it is, it will continue to be. And so these two-part operations is what makes the Upanishad a very effective way of dismissing the wrong notions, which only the human being has, because it's as though Bhagavati, the goddess, poured all her, magic into this person and made this person completely, totally self-aware without any inhibitions. This is both a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing because why? I can discover myself completely. It's a curse because it leads, I'm free enough to come to wrong conclusions about the nature of the I, which is why this two-part operation is needed. So how does the Upanishad, generally speaking, proceed and what does it do? More we shall see in the next class in half an hour. Om Purnamadaః Purnamidam Purnāt Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.